Okay, let's dive in. If you've been watching the housing market lately, it definitely feels different, doesn't it? Less like that runaway train we saw for years.
Yeah, more like maybe a big ship that's slowly turning, the momentum is shifting.
Exactly. And for years, the story was just relentless demand, hardly any supply. But some sources we're looking at today suggest this shift is creating a very specific, almost quantifiable opportunity.
Right. And if you know where to look, this analysis argues it might just be the simplest, maybe fastest path to finding a real deal right now.
So that's our deep dive today. We're going to really unpack this market analysis. It kind of flips the conventional wisdom, suggesting we shouldn't just chase new listings.
Instead, it says we should be tracking the pain points, specifically price reductions, looking at them as maybe the ultimate shortcut for a buyer.
Okay. So moving beyond just general feelings about the market and really decoding if tracking these specific data points, the price cuts actually gives you an edge.
Exactly. Can we quantify that advantage?
And the setup for this whole idea, it starts with something pretty obvious, I think. It's been hard to miss in a lot of areas. Inventory is climbing.
Mm-hmm. Significantly more homes for sale now compared to, say, 6 or even 9 months ago.
Yeah, you see the signs everywhere. But I wonder, is just saying inventory is up enough for someone trying to be strategic? You know?
It's a good starting point, but yeah, you're right. We have to understand the implications of that climb.
Okay.
For you, the listener interested in the data, more listings means a lower, well, technically it's a higher absorption rate. It takes longer to sell everything available.
Ah, okay. So how long the current listed homes would take to sell?
Precisely. And when that time frame starts stretching out maybe from a super tight 1 or 2 months of supply heading towards 4 or 5 months, that's the first real signal.
The signal that what?
That the market power is starting to migrate, moving away from the seller just a bit towards the buyer.
Because sellers can't just rely on scarcity anymore. No more guaranteed bidding wars.
Exactly. It naturally gives you, the buyer, more options. It shifts that balance, just slightly sometimes, but it's a shift.
Okay, that reframes it nicely. It's not just more houses, it's like a longer shelf life for each house listed.
Well put, yeah.
But that still feels like only half the picture, doesn't it? If I suddenly have, say, 100 houses to choose from instead of 10, how do I know which 5 sellers are really ready to make a deal?
Right. And that's what many people might overlook. Our sources highlight this as the critical factor for finding strong value right now.
Oh, yes.
It's that alongside the surge in listings, there's often a disproportionate rise in price reductions, not just more listings, but way more cuts on those listings.
Disproportionate. Okay, that's interesting.
That's where we move from just basic market awareness to maybe competitive intelligence. You have to look really closely at the scale of those cuts.
Why the scale?
Because they're the raw signal, the signal of seller motivation. And the source material makes this really crucial distinction between, let's call them strategic cuts and dramatic cuts.
Okay, walk us through that. What does a strategic cut look like in this context?
So a strategic cut is usually pretty minor, maybe shaving off just 1 or 2%. Sometimes it's just, $5,000.
Okay.
And it often happens quite early, like within the first week or 2 of the listing going live.
And the point of that is?
It's often the listing agent just trying to nudge the price into the next lower search bracket online, trying to catch buyers who set those really firm budget ceilings,
Right, like getting under the $500 K mark or something.
Exactly. They're just trying to widen the net, generate a bit more interest. They aren't necessarily motivated by some urgent deadline yet.
Okay, that makes sense. But then you have the dramatic cuts. And this is where you're saying the real opportunity lies for buyers.
Exactly. The source analysis defines these as pretty explicit signals of real motivation.
Okay, so let's quantify it. What does dramatic mean here? Give us the numbers.
Right. For you, the listener, needing that specific detail, we're generally talking about anything over a 5% reduction from the previous list price.
5%.
Oh, and importantly, especially if that reduction happens after the property has already been sitting on the market for, say, 30 days or more without getting an offer.
The time factor matters too, not just the percentage cut.
Yes. And in really high-value markets, think places where prices are regularly over $1 million, that reduction might need to be even bigger to send the same strong signal, maybe closer to 8%, sometimes even 10%.
So we're moving past just vaguely saying tens of thousands in cuts. We're talking about a minimum threshold, that 5%, that shows a pretty significant, probably painful adjustment for the seller.
You nailed it. It suggests the seller has moved past their initial, maybe wishful thinking about the price.
That 5% number feels key then.
It is. Because when a seller voluntarily takes a 5% hit, especially after 30 days, they're basically communicating one of two things.
Okay.
Either they or their agent desperately misjudged the market when they listed. Or
Yeah.
their personal timeline has compressed dramatically. They need cash or just certainty, like now.
Gotcha. So these larger post-30-day cuts are what the analysis flags as explicitly revealing motivated sellers.
That's the term they use, yeah.
And that combination, you've got rising inventory giving you options, and these dramatic price cuts giving you quantifiable leverage. That's the core insight for the savvy buyer, isn't it?
It really is. You're essentially targeting pure motivation. You're not just sitting back and waiting for the entire market average to drop.
You're dealing with someone who's shown they're ready to transact, likely quickly. These price movements become direct opportunities.
Which naturally brings up the next big question. How do you actually find these motivated sellers efficiently? You can't just scroll through thousands of listings all day hoping to spot one.
Right, the operational side.
And the analysis gives a very specific, quite actionable strategy for hunting down these potential hidden gems.
Okay, let's get into the execution then. The method outlined in the source, it seems like it relies almost entirely on speed, right?
It does. You shift from just casually browsing to actively hunting.
Yeah.
And you do it through a very narrow, very tiny data set.
Which is?
Reviewing all the price reductions that happened in just the last 7 days.
The last 7 days. Why so specific? Why just 1 week?
Well, that 7-day window, it's basically a mechanism to try and beat the competition, to get there first.
How so?
Well, think about it. When a property gets a dramatic cut, like that 5% or more we talked about, it can actually take maybe 10 days, sometimes even 14 days,
Okay.
for that price change to filter through all the major consumer websites and apps. And crucially, for other buyers' automated saved searches to flag it properly.
There's a lag time in the system.
Exactly. So by specifically targeting only cuts from the last 7 days, you're trying to intercept that motivated seller in that short window before the rest of the motivated buyer pool even realizes the price dropped significantly.
You're trying to catch it immediately after the cut happens.
Right, not 2 weeks later when potentially you could have multiple offers again, just at the new lower price.
Okay, that makes sense. It's like a temporal arbitrage, finding an edge in timing.
That's a good way to put it.
But practically speaking,
Yeah.
how do listeners actually do that? I mean, I don't think every big real estate website lets you specifically filter for reductions in the last 7 days.
You're right, and this is where the source material gets a bit more technical. Your average consumer app might be limited. But the more advanced platforms that agents use, or some dedicated data services the report mentions, they often allow for much more custom filtering. Sometimes even like SQL queries if you have access to the raw data.
Okay, so maybe not easy for everyone.
Maybe not directly with a simple button click everywhere, but the key takeaway for you, the listener, even if you're just using public tools, is to prioritize any search filter that tracks listing changes or updates, not just brand new listings.
Look for things like date of price change or recently updated.
Exactly. Look for ways to sort or filter by the date the price changed. Because this focused review, the whole point is, as the source puts it, to uncover the hidden gems that may not be obvious at first glance.
Okay, that's fascinating. But I have to play devil's advocate here for a second. The sources must address this, right? Isn't chasing motivated sellers sometimes just a recipe for finding houses with, serious hidden problems?
Yeah, the ones nobody else wanted, hence the price cut.
Exactly. You find the deal, but you inherit a massive headache.
That is a super important caveat, and the analysis is really clear on this. This strategy is only for finding the potential opportunity. It absolutely does not replace thorough due diligence. You still need inspections, everything.
Okay, critical point.
However, the data presented suggests something interesting. Right now, it seems most of these dramatic cuts aren't primarily driven by, crumbling foundations or leaky roofs.
What are they driven by then?
Mostly by sellers or their agents, having initially overestimated the market value, combined with rising interest rates just squeezing affordability for the average buyer.
So marking conditions rather than property condition.
Largely, yes. And the sources point to a really interesting correlation.
Go on.
Properties that got a second dramatic price cut, let's say another 5% after the first one, and then sold quickly after that second cut, within 15 days.
Yeah.
Those properties were actually statistically less likely to have major structural issues reported after the sale compared to properties that just sat there stale for 6 months with maybe tiny price drops.
Wait, really? That seems counterintuitive. Why would that be?
The thinking is, the seller who makes those big cuts and accepts an offer quickly is often motivated purely by their timeline or maybe financial need. They just want out.
Ah, not necessarily because they're trying to consciously hide a known major defect.
Exactly. Whereas the property that just lingers forever with minimal changes might have a more patient seller, or perhaps one who is aware of an issue they're reluctant to address or price in properly.
So the data suggests the quick transaction after a big cut might actually be a safer bet in some ways than the one that just sits.
It implies that, yes, it implies a sort of clean break. The seller has mentally checked out, accepted the market reality, and is ready to move on.
Interesting. So this strategy works, the source argues, because these targeted properties often represent the best chance to secure a home at a strong value.
Because you're catching that highly motivated seller before the momentum of other buyers or even sometimes other agents who weren't watching closely fully catches up to that new lower price point.
Okay, let's circle back to market segmentation for a minute before we wrap up. Does that definition of a dramatic cut, the percentage change much depending on how expensive the home is?
Oh, absolutely. That 5% benchmark we discussed, that's really a median starting point. Context is everything here. Well, in a market where the median home is, say, $250,000, a $12,500 reduction, that's 5%. That's pretty substantial, isn't it?
Yeah, that could cover a chunk of closing costs or help with the down payment. Big deal for many buyers.
Huge motivator. But now think about a luxury market. A $3 million home. A 5% cut there is $150,000.
Still a lot of money, but maybe perceived differently at that price point.
Exactly. It might still be seen as just minor posturing or testing the waters. So in those higher-end markets, the sources suggest you should be looking for cuts closer to 8%, maybe even 10%.
Why higher?
Because you need the kind of cut that fundamentally changes the potential buyer pool, something
Yeah.
that brings in a whole new group of potential homeowners who previously thought that property was completely out of reach.
Got it. It's about the magnitude relative to the typical buyer's purchasing power in that specific segment.
Precisely.
Okay. So if we zoom out and try to synthesize this whole picture,
Yeah.
what's the main takeaway?
I think if we connect all these dots, the big picture is this. The market, in many areas, is no longer just unilaterally punishing buyers for waiting or being cautious.
Okay.
It's actually starting to actively reward the buyer who is disciplined, who is informed, and who uses specific data like this price reduction data to really laser target their search.
So you've got the rising inventory providing the option,
Right, giving you choices.
combined with this growing number of dramatic price reductions giving you actual leverage.
Exactly. And that dynamic creates a highly targeted way for you, the listener, to potentially seek out strong value right now, not months or years from now.
It definitely seems to validate that initial claim we talked about, that tracking these reductions could be a powerful shortcut to finding deals.
Provided, and it's a big provided, that the buyer acts with that speed and discipline we discussed.
Right, the 7-day window.
And, that actually brings us to a really interesting final thought for you to consider. It's kind of critical for where the market might go next. Well, this whole strategy relies on exploiting that lag time, right? The gap between the dramatic price cut happening and the rest of the market catching up. That sweet spot in the last 7 days. But if this tactic itself becomes more widely known, if more savvy buyers start adopting this focused, fast-moving strategy, what happens then?
The strategy stops being secret.
Exactly. Agents representing those motivated sellers, they're smart. They'll adapt quickly once they realize buyers are pouncing within days of a cut.
So what's the provocative question for the listener?
It's really this. What's the counter strategy from the listing agent going to be once this 7-day hunting trick becomes common knowledge? And maybe more importantly, how will you, the buyer, need to evolve your search tactics again to make sure you're still finding genuine motivation and not just jumping into a newly structured, very fast 7-day bidding war? What happens when everyone knows the trick?